Are you ready to take action to attain the lifestyle of your dreams?
It's a great way to make a lot of money fast.
The Clever Investor Show.
Hey, what's going on, Clever Investors? Cody Sperber here, the OG Clever Investor. Welcome back to the Clever Investor Show. Today, we have two very special guests, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because Mr. Mark Victor Hansen and his beautiful counterpart, significant other, wife, and a badass herself, Crystal, is in the house with us here today. So we have two best-selling authors, philanthropists, real estate investors, very successful trainers. You're a certified life coach, a hypnotherapist. You have sold more books than the Chicken Soup for the Soul series has sold more books than any other series in history. I think you have over 200 different
254 books in a chicken series and 4 movies, like bestseller with Michael Caine. So all that was a vision and a dream and a hope and a prayer. And then it's taken 20 years, but it's unfolded. It's evolved.
It's literally 500 million plus copies have been printed and are in existence and sold. And on top of that, well, let me just back up. The only other book that's ever outperformed the Chicken Soup series is the Bible, which is crazy to think like it's been that successful. And I want to unpack like that whole ride and journey and how we got to here. You two have also co-authored a book called Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about this book because we were talking before we started the podcast. And I love what this book is all about. And I want to understand what we're asking, right? What are we going to ask? How are we going to get from our dreams to our destiny?
Right.
That's the point of this book, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So first off, welcome to the Clever Investor Show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I couldn't be more excited to be here.
Yeah. So this show is all about, it's a financial literacy podcast, but the end result is we want to make an embarrassing amount of money. We want to keep the money we're making. We don't want to pay it all in taxes, right? We want to be really smart with our money. We want to multiply it. And then at the end of the day, we want to make our money matter, right? And, you guys have been coaching and teaching and speaking and traveling and preaching a very similar message for a really long time.
Totally.
I remember reading Chicken Soup for the Soul. I remember being a little kid, seeing it in the grocery stores everywhere.
We're very thankful for that.
It's crazy how successful that series has been.
Not only did we do $2 billion at retail of books, but I created the licensing and we did $1 billion in licensing. Like we did $157 million in dog food. Now you say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, we had a little book in every piece of chicken soup dog food, but we get 15% of it and I didn't have to package it, wrap it, smell it, license it, put it at the front. I mean, we did license it, put it at the front of the counter and it just keeps selling. It's one of the best selling dog foods ever.
That's insane.
No, but what I'm saying is to everybody listening here, when you get I wrote a book called Grow Rich in Your Niche, one of 318 books I've written. When you get this going, you want to keep expanding it because, we were talking earlier, the prayer of Jabez says, God bless me a lot. That's line number 1. Line number 2 is expand my territory, expand my business, expand my real estate holding, expand my book sales. And then keep me out of evil, because the trouble is that once you start making it, money makes you more of who you are. So if you're a schmuck, you become a really big bad schmuck.
Yeah.
I'm going to use nice.
I know some of I know some of these people. Yeah, I've been exposed to some of them.
We've met them all. But if you're a really good guy and a philanthropist, and we won the Horatio Alger Award, which means we came from rags to riches, been excessively philanthropic. And last year we got 3,500 kids in scholarships to go to school and to trade school and to start entrepreneurship. So it's a really good thing. And I got to take you with us, not this year, but a year from now in April to Horatio Alger Award. And you'll be blown away because you get it in the Supreme Court from Judge Clarence Thomas, a gold medal around your neck. 10 people win it in America, 1 international. And we're friends with people that every one of them's a household name, whether it's Oprah or whether it's Judge Clarence Thomas or whatever.
So what I'm hearing you say is you guys brag different. You guys have some real things to brag about, some real impact. I love it.
Yeah, we've got
no big deal.
awards.
Just a couple billion in sales, winning awards with the top, leaders in the world to ever be, make an impact in our world.
But what that comes down to is what we were talking about in your office just a second ago. Everyone has this dedication inside, and what they got to do is release it. And it's only with shows like that do this. Because when I went bankrupt, luckily I was reading self-help action books because the tapes didn't exist yet. And then tapes came along, and I listened to one tape 287 times. It gave me what Zig Ziglar would call a check up from the neck up, because it's from the neck up that you decide to do it. And you got to listen to like Clever Investor Show to wake up the potential. All of us have infinite potential because we're made in the image and likeness of the infinite. And you're here to create, contribute, and then be charitable.
Well, you said something that I caught on. You said exponential. You used the word exponential.
Correct.
And I love that. Exponential growth in many areas of our life.
My newsletter on LinkedIn is called The Exponential Impact, because if you walk linearly and take 30 steps down this floor, you're 30 steps down. But exponential, it's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. If you do a revolution, we start with $1, which you could start with in real estate and buy a little share or something. In 30 revolutions, it becomes $1 billion. That's exponential. And everyone needs to wake up, because we're in the exponential age is what we're teaching.
All right, well, let's kind of talk about that, because, there's a lot of young people that would listen to this show and they'd say, I don't feel like I have a path. I don't have clarity on what I'm going to do as I'm growing up. But I want to make an impact. I want to make a lot of money. I want, if you line up 100 kids at 18 years old, ask them all, are you going to be successful? All 100 say yes. You follow them back now 85 years later, you said, how many of them statistically made it?
Right.
2, right? So it's like, how do we kind of help these young people have that clarity, have that confidence so they can experience an exponential life?
Right. And that's why we wrote the book, Cody, because, like everything, we wrote it from our own lives, because Mark and I are so blessed to travel around the world, and we've met so many countries, talked to so many people, but we often meet people who are like super smart, talented, just amazing people, so capable, but like they're falling short of their goals. They're just like, they could run a city, but they can't even seem to like pay their rent. And so we have this like morning prayer meditation hour that we do every day. And we always discuss stuff like this. And we were talking about it one day, and we're like, if we could think of one tool, one thing that we could give people that would really help them like change everything in their lives, what would that be? And we realize like, our lives have not always been easy. People look at people like us and they're like, oh, you have had it so easy. It just came to you. But we've had tremendous challenges and struggles, both individually and together. And so we asked, how did we get through our challenges? What is it? What's that like secret sauce that helped us move to the next place, get a new understanding? And what it came down to, honestly, was being able to ask the right question at the right time in the right way, to the right person sometimes, and sometimes it's to yourself, to get a new understanding, to get a new direction, to get some clarity, to get a new illumination, because that never happens until you start asking. And if you think about it, human beings are the only creatures on earth that can ask a question. And we did a ton of research when we wrote the book. And something happens when you ask a question. Something changes inside your brain, okay? A part of your brain actually lights up, and it's the part of your brain that does critical thinking. So imagine what a difference that makes when you start to deliberately, when you're in these situations, basically at every point in life, if you learn to keep asking the right questions, how much your life changes. And we realized, you'll see the subtitle, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, because it really becomes a bridge. You keep asking the questions, and the next, you ask a question, you get a new solution. You ask another question, a new illumination comes. Ask another question. You start to design a new plan. And suddenly you're at a different place on that bridge. You're just moving closer and closer to your destiny. And we're never at our destiny in this life. You know that, because it's going to continue to unfold. But if we want to keep moving toward it, we have to ask.
So one of the first, I guess, exercises I was ever exposed to as an entrepreneur, one of my mentors was like, listen, why are you doing this? And I said, at the time I was broke, and I'm like, well, I want to make money. And he's like, well, why do you want to make money? And the kind of that theory of like, ask 7 layers in, 8 layers in, 10. Eventually you get to a point where you realize your first answer wasn't the actual answer.
Right.
You had to keep digging and keep digging and keep going. Well, it's like, well, I want to make money. Well, why do you make money? Well, because I I want to have nice things. Well, why do you want to have nice things? Well, because I never had nice things growing up. Well, what would you do with those? And, and you just keep going. And where I landed on that exercise is I wanted control. It wasn't the money that I was really chasing.
Right.
It was the control. And once I got there and I understood the impact that was going to make in my life, it was easier to bulldoze past hurdles and hardships and struggles and stuff, because I wasn't chasing a dollar. I was chasing a lifestyle. I was chasing this feeling that was important to me. And then eventually when I had kids, my why shifted over to that, but is that what you're saying in this book? Like, let's learn how to ask questions. So give me some examples. Like, I'm this young person.
Right.
I'm gunning. I want to do something, but maybe I don't have the clarity in the path yet.
Right. So what
kind of questions am I asking?
Well, here, it's a lot of different types of questions, but it's important to understand the categories of question asking. So we determined there were like 3 channels, through which you would ask. Ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. So the asking yourself part is that reflective journey that you were just describing. Where am I? Why do I want this? What am I doing? Is this working or is it not working? What would work? So that's a reflective journey. If you don't take that journey, you're never going to figure out where to go. And so I see people, kind of going around in circles in their lives, but they never get off that merry-go-round and sit down with themselves and start to ask those questions that you're talking about. So ask yourself is the reflective journey. Ask others is that bonding journey. Have you ever done anything successfully in your life without other people being involved?
No.
Never. Yeah. Never will, never can. We are meant to be together, to bond. So asking the right questions of the right people is incredibly important. It's part of the bonding journey, of the asking journey, the bonding part of the asking journey. And then asking God is the third part, because there's so much more, this whole kingdom is so much bigger than you. Whatever you want to call it, this universe, whatever's going on, whatever this thing is that you're a part of is so much bigger than just me or just you. So when you ask the creator of the universe, right, the source of all of this, it just broadens your perspective so much. And when you tap into the source of everything, you are going to get answers. You are going to transform your life no matter what. And so each of those channels is just equally important. But we just have to keep asking again and again and again, depending on the scenario. So when you say, like, what is the question? What is the scenario?
Got it. So you're more giving them like a framework on, like, this is the structure on how you ask these questions. You're going to have to come up with the questions you're going to ask.
Well, and we give a lot of examples. There are holding up the mirror questions. There are all kinds of impact questions, relationship questions, business questions, because so often in business we fail because we're afraid to ask. And we talk in the book about how people are so afraid to ask. And we talk about, well, do you want to talk about the 7 roadblocks?
We'll do the 7 roadblocks, but the point is that most people get stopped themselves rather than, and what you're saying is we got 7 roadblocks, starting with a sense of self-worth. And I own 2 companies with Bob Proctor. Everybody watching probably knows that name. And Bobby just transitioned and we did his funeral. But he started out, he's out of the military, the Navy in Canada. He's got no money. He's a fireman. He's making $4,000 a month, owes $6,000. He's looking around every night. All they go out and do is drink. And he looks around and says, this isn't going anywhere. So he goes to the richest guy in Canada that he could find. Ray and I became good, Stanfield. And he said, you're rich, I'm poor. What did I do wrong? He says, you're asking the wrong question. So you got to ask, what book do I need to read to wake up? And it was Think and Grow Rich. Bob made it his Bible. He went from 0 to 25,000. Al said, you'll never make money. And then he started doing windows, and he hired all the guys that he used to work with. And he hired all the guys at the bank. Then he did so much money. He was making $1 million a year in Toronto, and they did $1 million in Montreal and Atlanta and then UK. And then everyone said, well, how do you make so much money? And he was listening to all the right tapes by Think and Grow Rich by Earl Nightingale, but he owned Think and Grow Rich, transitioned his consciousness to build a wealth reset. He overcome his lack of self-worth because he was born into depression. And in depression, you're an intrinsic have-not. His mom said, we'll never have anything. We didn't have anything. You're not going to have anything, Bobby. And she and I became good friends too. So, because we were just together. But Bob ends up owning Proctor Lane, and he owns his own house. He owns a $1 million studio like you do. It became extraordinary. And that's just the first one, where there's 7 more. Then you got a sense of self-worth. All the way down to number 7, disconnection, which a lot of people are disconnected because all the teenagers on the cell phone say, I'm connected. I got this many friends. No. Connection is what we're doing now. We're physically, literally in entrainment. We can feel your energy orbit. We can deliver the goods. We can watch you and see if you're agreeing or disagreeing, if we can do business together, can't do business together, have a relationship. And then hitchhiking, what Crystal said, where I was going to answer a little bit different than the 7 roadblocks, but we can finish them if you want, is that everybody should get not one ask book, but get 2 for you and your mastermind partner, because 1 and 1 equals 11. Like she said, none of us can do anything alone. That's that part. But when you go through the questions, it's what you said. You said a 7-fold path, right? Sort of the Siddhartha thing, right? And you go deep into finding out what is the real thing you want. You want to have money freedom, to have time freedom, to have relationship freedom, so you can have purpose freedom, because every one of us has got a destiny code. That's what you were asking when we were in your office. You were coded at birth in DNA, RNA level with 3.5 billion imprints to go do something great. And we all come in with amnesia. Bob and I talked about that a great deal. And what happens is asking questions, like Crystal was saying, get you out of amnesia. And we have 178 questions in there. If you go over that with somebody else in an open, non-judgmental way, you're going to find out who you really are. And not only who you are, but whose you are.
So the purpose of this could be literally you and your significant other just sitting down.
Bingo.
Totally.
Just unpacking
Life.
Yeah, life, and really connecting as you do it.
And your kids.
Exactly. And you know what? We have all 4 sections in there because life needs balance. I mean, I can make millions of dollars, but if my relationships are terrible, especially with your significant, your spouse, partner, or even your kids, if you have bad relationships, if your health is terrible, and you don't have any real spiritual connection, you have a really empty life. So as much as we all want to make the money, we need to remember we have to keep balancing this whole wheel called our life. And so we talk about asking in relationships, asking in business and finances, asking in health and wellness. It's super, super important. And we have some amazing stories in the book, and we can get into some of the stories. And then, of course, asking in your spiritual path.
All the pillars that actually matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of young guys are just gunning after money, and they let their health go.
Right.
They let their relationships go. Their intimacy circles are all jacked up. They're all focused on just making money.
Right.
And a lot of other things go to the sidelines.
Yeah.
When you were first starting, I think it was 144 times you tried to get published. Is that an accurate number? I mean, like, that just seems like you were just getting doors slammed, told no,
Totally.
pushed around, passed over. What was the moment where you finally, were you just like, I'm going to do this if it takes 10,000 times? Or was there a moment where you were like, we're getting closer, and then finally something broke? Like, what was it where it finally lit up?
So I've been selling since I was 9 years old because I got to buy my own clothes. My parents had gone through the Depression, didn't have money, and I love my parents and I love myself and all my brothers. The point is mother taught me how to sell, and the word she taught was N-E-X-T, next. So if somebody rejects you, just say next, or somebody going to buy. So Jack was a little reticent. I mean, he's 3rd in his class at Harvard, super smart, comes out of an affluent family, and I came out of a family with nothing. So I said, Jack, just hang in there. And then our agent fired us early in the game, which has cost him tens of millions of dollars, right? So the point is that we got rejected. We finally go to the book expo, and we've gotten all these rejections. We got giant amounts of pink slips, and we're carrying backpacks with 3-ring binders. And now remember, this is the brand new thing in the book business. This is 1989. And we've finished the book, and we desperately want to do it, but we need distribution is what we think we need. And we go from booth to booth, finishing. And then the last day, 3 days we're there. The last day, a little company that's bankrupt. Now, we didn't know they're bankrupt at the time, and our agent had fired us, so I'm agenting it myself. They say, well, last night we read your book and we cried on our silk shirt, so we'll take it if you'll buy 20,000 books at $6 each. Well, that was to keep them alive, but I didn't get that. I thought, well, you got distribution and you're doing a few books, so we'll do it. So Health Communications we ended up making him a billionaire, which God bless us. But and it was, right? The point is that we were desperate, and we knew that it would work because I'll let Crystal tell this story, but I'm doing had 4 marketplaces: churches, chiropractors, life insurance, and real estate. And Tell them about Charlie Green.
Oh, it's so funny because right when we were writing this book, spontaneously, this guy named Charlie Green said, Mark, I was thinking about this story. I just wanted to, send it to you because I'll never forget it. He said, when you were writing Chicken Soup, he said you were, or just had the idea for Chicken Soup, just in the beginning stages. He said, you came to speak at our church. It was like a big mega church. And he said, you stood up and you gave this incredible sermon and everybody just fell in love with you. And we all stood up and applauded. And then you said, you stood up and you waved this manuscript around, this typed manuscript, and said, so now I'm going to ask you all something. I've got this book and I know it's going to be a bestseller. It's called Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I'm going to ask you, it's not published yet, but I'm going to ask you to fill out an order form and put your credit card down. And when we get this published, we'll send it to you. And Charlie goes, I was blown away to look at the whole audience filled out this form. Everyone was happy to just turn over their credit card. And he was like, I was just blown away that you would ask such a thing. But Mark is honestly the boldest asker I've ever met. And I think
is that how he got you?
Bold. Yes.
Is that what?
Yeah,
we
got to tell that story. Please let her tell.
Me. Well, it's funny because our friend, he's like, I want to write he's a songwriter. He's a very successful real estate guy, but he writes music. He said, I want to write a song about you guys. So he interviewed us. And I was talking about how, he's like, how did Mark ask you? And I was like, well, that's hard to say because he asked me so many times. He goes, he asked you so many times. I was like, yeah, he just wanted to make sure, I think. And he goes, well, what did you say every time? And I go, I just said yes again. And so he wrote this song called Say Yes Again.
But you got to tell him how we met. That's what you asked.
So we met, funny thing, my mom got this. I had my life coaching practice in Scottsdale, and my clients were just having amazing results. Like people who had been depressed their entire lives were totally resolved within 5 appointments. I was doing emotional freedom technique, a combination of hypnotherapy, taking them deep into their childhood, memories, like neutralizing things. So it was miraculous. I mean, literally in 5 appointments, suffering depression their whole lives. And they're like, I'd get emails like, I thank God the day you came into my life. I'm completely free of depression. So anyhow, I'm writing this book about my client's success called Pure Thoughts for Pure Results. He actually helped me come up with the title, the second part of it later. But so mom goes, I just got this email. I was just recently divorced. He had been divorced 3 years. And she said, there's this Author 101 event going on in LA and there'll be publishers and publicists and Mark Victor Hansen will be there. And I was like, oh, woo, mom. Okay, well, when is it? And she goes, it was like the day after tomorrow. Yeah, I was like, that's the day after tomorrow. And I said, I'm sure it's sold out, Mom. I'm really busy. Who's going to watch the kids? And she goes, I'll watch the kids. Call him. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do this for my mom. I'll call him and see if I can get in. The guy called me back within less than 5 minutes. And it was Rick Frischman, big publicist at the time. He was promoting the event, doing the event. And Mark was the keynote speaker. So a day and a half later, I'm going to this event. I guess it's like this thing has a life of its own. I guess I'm going. So I'm at the VIP room and I am so serious about promoting my book. I'm like, I'm only here. I'm all business. So I wasn't drinking any wine. I'm like, don't want any wine, don't want anything. Just I'm talking to a speaking coach. And Mark was like in the corner of the room, was surrounded by this entourage of people. And suddenly this woman, there's a table next to me, and this woman from South America is talking with her hands, and she knocks a glass of red wine on my white pants, me, the girl who's not drinking, right? And Mark must have been looking my way because he breaks out of his crowd and comes makes his way over to me, and he grabs my hand. He's like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Here, I think I know where the club soda is. Follow me. And he led me out of the room. And I was like, wow. And so we just started talking. He started asking me about what I did. And suddenly he goes, there's something about you. I think you could really change the world and especially really impact women. And I'd love to hear more about your story, but I'm really hungry. Have you had dinner? And I said, no, I have not. He goes, well, would you like to come with me? But we need to go off the property because it's too many people will be coming up to me all night. So I said, let me go change out of these pants. And it was funny. I ran up to my hotel room, called my mom, and I said, I only have a second. How are the kids? She's like, they're great. I said, you won't believe this. I'm going to dinner with Mark Victor Hansen. And she goes, I knew that. And I was like, really? She just had some intuition,
Wow,
mother's
go
intuition.
Mom.
Yeah, go mom.
Well, way to step in and close, Mark.
Wait, listen to this.
So
we go to the
right?
best restaurant in Hollywood. There's like
so
50
fun.
people at 9:30 at night. And I go, crap, $100 bill
Seriously.
isn't getting us in here tonight. So I said, just let's just go wing it.
We're in a really silly, like, funny
we're
mood.
having a
just
ball
like,
together.
yeah.
We're just falling in love and didn't even know it yet.
Yeah.
And we get to the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper says, okay, because, she's been a professional model and all, and said, okay, I know she's somebody. Who is she? Now, remember, I teach. You only ask questions. You don't answer. I said, you don't recognize her? Now his head's going through People Magazine, InStyle, Vanity Fair, everything he could think of. No? Who is she? Now, remember, we're both Danish, so descent. I said, she's a Queen of Denmark. He said, no, she's not. He said, oh, my God, she is. Who are you? Back to questions. We're goofing, but I said,
lie.
who travels with the Queen? He said, oh, my God, you're the king. Hold on one second. That fast. We had the best table in the restaurant. 50 people going, what the hell is that? Right? We get the private tale. The little guy with a houndstooth pants is serving us privately, calling us king and queen. And, we're stuck now, but we just loved each other. So ever since.
Is it too late to tell him? I think we just should.
Nah, you just got to
roll with it.
Nah, you roll with it the whole time.
We did. We were
People
having
are bowing as you're walking out. You're just waving like kind of really proper wave. Yeah.
Because the king and queen of Denmark just like look like ordinary people, right?
We're just waiting in line.
They don't wear crowns or anything. You're right.
That's awesome. All right. Well, and
so it's a fun thing to ask, is what I'm saying. If you know how, and we just want everyone to know how. We have a thing called, you can tell the email in a second, but we want to teach everyone to be a master asker. You want to tell where to go?
Oh, yeah. We have a free masterclass called The Book Ask. So, yeah.
The Book Ask.
Thebookask.com.
There you go.
The Book Ask.
All right.
Go
So
there.
you got the book. You guys are out pushing the book, in the response has been good, obviously.
Phenomenal.
Been great.
So
Yeah.
that's
Worldwide.
great.
Can I tell this morning? So our publishers, Post Hill, this is before we
get
became a
tons of
publishing
letters,
company
though.
ourselves.
I mean-
And Anthony Zaccardi is a genius. He was going to be president of Simon Schuster and decided to do his own company because he really wanted freedom. And he wrote us this long letter and said, I can't believe this. He sends us a lot of letters, but today the letter came from Australia, and the people said, the one story by Lynn Quist, which he can tell you, has totally changed my life. And it went on 3 pages, but it was I read it. She didn't get to read it because I got up early and read the emails this morning.
Right. Well, we just
great
have
feedback.
Yeah, great feedback.
Phenomenal.
And there are
That's good.
so many powerful stories in this book. We interviewed 21 people, really people who've done powerful things, and made such a difference through their asking journey. And it's fascinating to read it because you don't realize the power of one question until you really take a deeper dive into this, and that's why when we wrote the book, we're like, or we got the idea, we're like, we have to share this. This is gold,
So you guys kind of have a formula. I can kind of see some of this because if you look at like Napoleon Hill, he had proximity to some of the most powerful people in the world, and he leveraged it by going and interviewing how many people?
500 people.
500 people, turned into Think and Grow Rich.
Sold 100 million during the Depression. I say he got us out of the Depression, just like 1898. Signs of Getting Rich, Wallace Wattles, and the other book by Horatio Algier got us out of the Depression, 1898. And that book did, and then my minister in New York, Norman Vince Peale, Power of Positive Thing, those two things revectored people's heads. Because depression happens for 2 reasons. Number one, we constipate trade, which is what we're doing right now, which is dumbass squared. And I'm really judgmental on that. And then number two is that if you think bad thoughts, if you ask yourself how to go bankrupt, you go bankrupt. If you ask yourself, and we'll teach very specifically how to do it in a second if you're interested, but if you ask yourself, the size of your question determines the size of your result is one of the questions in there. So if you ask yourself, how am I going to make $1 million this year? Subconscious goes teleologically, beep, 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 beep. You say, how am I going to go bankrupt, which I did in 1974. I lost $2 million in one day. Check out a book out of the library, the biggest library in the world, New York Public Library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. Asked the wrong question, but it was my best, worst experience long-term. But short-term, man, I was trash.
Yeah.
So that's the formula though, because you kind of took that interview style and said, they're onto something. Go find these stories, go find these people. And the Chicken Soup for the Soul turned out to be this ridiculous series full of just stories, right? These like really heartfelt, like leave you crying or leave you laughing, leave you full of joy or leave you totally like just emotional stories. Right.
So,
and that
yeah,
seems to be kind of a formula that you've mirrored and modeled.
Well,
on
we
a lot of
love
your books.
stories. Yeah. Because stories, stories are like metaphors for our lives. We can relate to stories emotionally. So we really feel like it's important to use stories, the power of storytelling.
What's one of the best stories in Chicken Soup for the Soul? The one that stands out the most to you where you're like, man, this, when it hit, and people just went nuts.
By the way, every one of them does. That's why the books work. If they didn't, it wouldn't. We scale it and we test it on the audience. Like our publisher said, Chicken Supper the Teenage Soul isn't going to sell because I got teenagers. They buy CDs, concert tickets, and clothes, and I give them $50. And I say, "Where's the money?" And they said, "The mall ate it." Well, the story, just one little one, is that a little 4-year-old is in the kitchen with mommy, and the next door neighbor is 82, and his wife just died, and the little mommy's telling little kid what happened. He runs out the door, runs across. She opens up the blinds and sees him run up the stage to the next door neighbor, jump in this guy's lap who's out in a rocker. He's there for 3 hours. Comes back home and mom's wondering, "What did you ever talk to our neighbor about?" Said, "Nothing, mommy. I just helped him cry."
It's a good one.
That is a good one.
I
It
like
causes
them.
tears to my eyes still. It's right. We can cause
Very-
tears, we can cause laughter, we can go either direction.
So precious. Yeah.
In that concept of teaching through storytelling, you think that's why Chicken Soup for the Soul was so powerful?
What happened is Jack and I created a model where you had, here's the highway and here's the curbs, and we wouldn't go over the curbs, and it's 7 things. But first of all, it's got to cause instantaneous behavioral change. If you read this story, it changes your life. Number 2, it's got to cause good goosebumps, God bumps, chilly bumps. And then I can go through all 7. But the point is, we had a formula, and most stories didn't make it. Like people come up and say, "I sent you my story. It was the best story I've ever written, and it didn't make your book. You're terrible." And I go, no, it's not me. The audience judges it without your name on it. It didn't have any famous. It didn't have Art Buchwalder. In this city, if you were old enough, you remember Irma Bombeck, who was very funny. Like she gave us great stories in
She
every
had a
book.
few
But
good
Irma
stories,
Bombeck
yeah.
has cancer. She goes to the hospital here we know the biggest hospital here in Arizona, and they say, "Go down to room 37. She goes in, starts taking off her clothes, and there's 4 guys standing in suits. And they're aghast. They said, "What are you doing?" Said, "Well, aren't you cancer oncologists?" They said, "No, we're the painters."
Yeah, she's hilarious.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
No.
You mentioned, you said that you went bankrupt or almost went bankrupt.
No,
When
I
was
went
it?
bankrupt.
1974.
4.
What happened there?
What happened is I was building, I'd been in graduate school, the smartest guy on the planet. Bucky, Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller was Einstein's best student, 2,000 major inventions, 40 books,
Amazing.
110 honorary doctorates, 15 doctorates just at Harvard, and different things that I never heard of before I heard Bucky and met him. And I just went, holy cow. He said 10 things in the first 5 minutes. I heard him. There's an audience of 5,000. We're going to talk about cosmogonies, synergetic, energetic geometry. I'd never heard any of these words. And I thought, God, I got a 4-point. I'm supposed to be really smart, and I'm an idiot. At first time I understood what sophomoric meant, that I thought I was puffy about myself. I now hear somebody that's a genius, that's really the top guy, and I've done a lot of videos on him on YouTube. The point is, Bucky just wowed my soul. And he said, we're going to make the world work for 100% of humanity. So I go beg and work for him and then travel with him for 7 years and study all that stuff. But I tried to be Bucky. I built I owned a company called Dome East, and we built in New York City. We were building the Wall Street Racquet Club, botanical gardens, aviaries, houses out of spherical buildings that Bucky invented, made out of triangles. And what happens is a building like that is like an eggshell. It's 1/100th the thickness of the shell, and it's stronger. It has what's called tensegrity. And I was building the superstructures out of plastic, polyvinyl chloride, and Monsanto was the biggest manufacturer, and they shut me off. I was doing $40,000 a month, and I thought I was smoking. And all of a sudden, the oil embargo hits, and like that, I'm out of business in one day. It's like
Because that's what it was made out of?
Yeah.
yeah,
petroleum
that's
products,
our and I didn't know, and so that's why I had to go bankrupt. So for 6 months, I want to kill myself, and I'm sleeping.
And you didn't even see that Achilles heel.
I didn't even see it coming. No,
Yeah.
and Achilles heel means, the Greek story about the arrow hits the Achilles heel, and that's where the blood transfers in the body, so you bleed to death.
Mhm.
So I was bleeding
Yeah.
to death, and I thought, back to the 3 questions: God, should I kill myself? Or God, what does He want me to do? God doesn't answer that way. He answered. I could hear Him audibly in my head. What do you want to do? Holy cow, what a question. Well, in the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep. I said, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that make a life-changing difference. So I go down to my 3 roommates. We're paying $100 a month, and I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag in front of another guy's room. So you can see
So
I'm
bad.
not styling and profiling at that moment, because they took everything from me in the Eastern District of Long Island at that time. And I said, I want to be a speaker. Any of you guys know somebody that's young, that's not a Broadway star, a celebrity, a lawyer, a doctor, or a cotton top? I need somebody I can relate to age-wise, because I'm only 26 or 25 years old. Guy says, here's a ticket to go hear Chip Collins. He's turns around a real estate market here. He wowed the audience, 500 people.
What was his name?
Chip Collins, because he also trained the lady on.
Where do you
Shark
meet
Tank.
Bucky and Chip and like, you got a lot of colorful people out of New York that you're running into.
Yeah, I'll take you there in a second. But I go up to Chip at the end. I said, look, can I take you to lunch? He said, what do you want to do? Now he's 10 years older than I am.
I met a guy named Bucky, and we did acid together in Kansas at some point. And I remember,
Bucky.
yeah, just me and Bucky doing some acid with the goats in the middle of
Wasn't Buckminster
Greensburg,
Fuller,
Kansas. There's probably a different Bucky.
Probably a different Bucky.
Okay,
I would
all
bet.
right. Sorry to interrupt you. I didn't,
No
Not the one
problem.
that worked with Einstein.
No,
Our
my
Buckminster
Bucky
Fuller.
definitely didn't work with Einstein. No. All right, so
Because Bucky had written a book when Einstein came out with, I'll do this side real quick, but when Einstein came out with E equals MC squared, nobody could understand it. Fuller, who is the smartest guy to graduate Harvard that year, wrote E equals MC squared for Mrs. Jones, so anyone could understand it. E is all the energy of physical universe equals mass, hard like this table, or our body, bones, or C is all the sunlight or light of universe or this room. And he goes to publish it, and they say, look, kid, you're 24 years old and nobody ever heard of you, and there's only 11 people that understand E equals MC squared, and your name ain't on this list. He said, there's only one guy that knows if I know this stuff. He said, who's that, sir? He said, Dr. Albert Einstein. He's over at Princeton. 3 weeks later, Bucky gets a call from Princeton, and if you watch the tintypes, he's got a very Germanic voice, of course, come from Germany as a genius. And he says, young man, you absolutely amaze me. Come over here to Princeton and be with me. Wow. Well, Bucky gets there. He had a flat tire. And back in the old days, we didn't have tires that recycled and all that stuff. So, and he self-inflated. So Bucky gets there and is apologetic. And Albert said, look, I live in the universe. There's no time or space in the universe. And the story goes on, but just, it's a wow of a story. And then, anyhow, so I meet Chip back to I said, let me take you to lunch. He said, what do you want, kid? I said, I want to do what you do. He said, look, chance you making is 1 in 1,000. You ain't going to make it. I said, let me decide that. I've been selling since I was 9 years old. Just tell me what to do. He tells me what to do, tells me the questions, but he said, you got to stay out of real estate because I own the 5 boroughs here. And at the time,
he didn't want to create a competitor, but he would help you become a great speaker.
We became a mastermind partner. Every Friday at 4 o'clock, we met and went over stuff, and I transcended his success pretty quick just because he didn't want to work as hard because he was making, he thought $100,000 a year was a lot. And I met in the life insurance business, the guy said, look, Mark, Ben Feldman, the world's best salesman ever at the time, he outsold 1,500 of the 1,800 insurance companies, and I had lunch like you and I are meeting now. And he said, look, the difference between $400 a day, 250 work days, and $4,000 a day, 250 work days is $1 million. So all you got to do is change 1 0 in your mind, Mark, and you'll make $1 million a year. He said, is it important to you to keep your kid alive? Would you make $4,000 one day if your kid's life depended on it? I said, heck yeah. Started making $4,000 a day. Just change your mind. This is why watching shows like this, one little idea like that changed my mind. I hope it'll change people watching their mind. I hope they'll read all my books. I wrote 7 major money books, but Chip and I just helped. He said, call in 10 people, want to do it. And I was doing 4 seminars, a day. I'd start in the morning, and all the seminars in New York, 18 million people were in the same building. So Metropolitan, Guardian, State Farm, all be in one building, although it'd say Metropolitan or Pru on the top. And I made a fortune. And then they said, well, do you have that story in a book? And first book, this is the biggest mistake I made. I did a book called Stand Up, Speak Out and Win, sold 20,000 copies to little audiences, all cash, $10 each, that's $200,000. Well, 1975, man, that's like $2 million. I was back. I didn't do another book for 4 years. That's why I teach now in our company, MarkVictorHansenLibrary.com, which is a publishing house that ghostwrites and edits books, do a lot of books. They can't buy it if you don't put it in the covers.
Right.
When I hear you say that, I think a lot about like how I operate in my real estate education company. You put out how to make money in real estate, in wholesaling. If I don't create another product after that, if I don't have a product matrix, if I don't have fresh new stuff, first off, your customers can't return. Correct. Buy anything else. Right. And it doesn't maybe bring new customers into your world that want something totally different. But then once they get in there, they're, I also want this other thing. They get exposed to that. So
this is the S-curve
advice.
The S-curve in business is you put money into the front end, it starts to go up. So Chicken Soup 1 is selling, And we had a little 3x5 card. We read it 4 times a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you program your mind, most importantly, right before you go to sleep. It said, I'm so happy and glad that we're going to sell 1.5 million in a year and a half, signed by Mark, Jack, and our publisher. And Jack and I really earnestly believed in ploding that into our mind to send
You wrote this goal down.
Yeah, and then we sold 1.3 million, so we were 200,000 short. But then next year I said, Jack, we're going to go to 5 million. The mind doesn't care, right? Whether you do a little or a lot, so go for a lot. Go, and I did a whole set of tapes, How to Think Bigger Than You Ever Thought You Could Think, which are bestsellers at Nightingale Conan. Then we said, well, that works. So then we said, well, let's sell 10 million a year, and we did that. Then we said, let's go for 15 million a year, and nobody had ever done that.
Mark, where do you get all? You're 75 years old.
Yeah, but I'm going to live to be 127.
I was going to say you got a lot of energy, man. This is
energy,
I'm just watching you go. You're like wound up. You're like, let's go.
I want everyone to let go.
I can tell you're a great salesperson because you weave in things that are important, the call to actions, you open loop, the frame, the story. I love it. Like as somebody who studies greatness, like it's really cool to have conversations like this.
Thank you.
With all these people, I can tell you're being imprinted. You're learning a ton through all this stuff. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've taken away from maybe a book like Think and Grow Rich? Like what are those things inside Think and Grow Rich that you're like, first off, everybody needs to read that book, and second off, here's the most important thing in this book?
Okay, so I've got a bunch of videos on YouTube on Think and Grow Rich because I've been asked to do it, and they're some of the most watched videos on YouTube, so I'm very thankful. But number one, he said, what is your desire? What is your dominating thought? What are you making your magnificent obsession? That's number one. And number two is it's got to be in writing, and he says that on page 36 of the paperback edition. Number three is you got to have a team to get your dream. 1 and 1 equals 11. And he learned it from Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie, I've been to both of his houses in New York and in Dornoch, Scotland. I paid the money. And I can talk to that. But he said, you got to write your goal, look at it 4 times a day, like I said. But he said, what you got to do with the team is you got to bring together 12, because Andrew Carnegie's reading the New Testament and said, holy cow. Jesus didn't do his first miracle turning water into wine at Canaan until he had 12 disciples synchromesh go in the same direction. It's like all the batteries got to be connected. And he said, look, if that guy can do miracles, I can do miracles in marketing and manufacturing steel. And then you got to visualize it to realize it. And yes, I did a whole set of tapes on that, but Carnegie could see this giant that steel was going to change the world. And he said, it doesn't matter what they do to me, I'm going to create the stuff. So he created Bessemer Steel. He starts making the railroads, and he's shipping all the oil for Rockefeller, who wants to take over his business. He doesn't know it. And he starts shipping the oil in types rather than on a railroad. And so he thought he'd put him out of business. Just the opposite. He said, all I got to do is go to prayer, visualize, keep doing what we teach in our book, Ask, 101 times. Say, what is the new use for Bessemer Steel? What's the new use for Bessemer Steel? And he builds the Empire State Building because it needed strength. All buildings until 1868 were all 2 or 3 stories. Just all you got to do is look at any old town, cowboy town, because that's all that would stay up in the wind and everything. So he builds the highest building in the world, and that changed the whole world. So what I'm teaching and what Hill teaches, but my line is, your problems are opportunities with work clothes on, and you got to figure out what the solution is. And the only way is, like Crystal said, when you ask God, you go into the higher, because you got a physical body, you got a brain that the school taught, you got an imagination, you got a mind, which is imagination, intuition. But the higher level of that is, what is the spiritual stuff, the new sphere, the consciousness, the Christ consciousness. It exists all the time, but oh no, I'm bankrupt, I'm upside. No, you go to a higher consciousness, you'll figure out a solution, because there's always a solution. And the guy that does them best now is Elon Musk. They tell him, shut down the car dealership. Instead of doing that, he calls up the head of 3M and said, look, I got 3D printing, I got the metal, I got the manufacturer, I got the people. I'll make your respirators, or whatever those things were called, and we'll split 50-50. Well, he also made 90,000 cars. Everybody else is shut down. What is he? He's bigger now than the 3 biggest car companies in the world, because he kept working when everybody else shut down. And that's the point. You're going to have problems. When I was going to be a doctor of physiology, and the guy introduced me to Bucky, right? Because you asked that question, I'll intrinsically say Dr. Alfred Miller, who is part of NASA with Bucky. Bucky's senior advisor. He's head of physiology. He said the first sign of life is always a problem.
So many of our listeners reach out and they ask us how they can get involved in my actual real estate deals. Our investment firm specializes in finding deeply discounted properties, acquiring them, renovating, stabilizing both single-family and multifamily properties all over the United States. That's why we're so excited to share with you clevercapitalfund.com. Now, if you have some investment capital and you want to deploy it and receive double-digit returns backed by real estate, then visit our website and see which fund is right for you. We have both equity funds and we have debt funds where you just get paid out every month like clockwork. All you got to do is visit www.clevercapitalfund.com today to learn more.
You stub your toe bad enough, you're going to know you're alive.
Wow, you said a lot right there.
There's a lot.
There was a lot
to unpack.
Yeah, there was a
right?
lot to unpack. I'm trying to think like what really resonated or what's most important. But you were actually taking that advice though that was in Think and Grow Rich. You were applying all that stuff as you were building out the chicken soup for the soul, trying to get it off the ground.
Totally.
You and Jack, up until that point, you were speaking and doing other things, but you hadn't hit it, right?
No.
You hadn't hit it big.
No, I sold a lot of books and sold a lot of products, but nothing compared to chicken soup.
Yeah. Well, and then it must work.
Yeah.
You applied it and it worked.
Yeah, well, back to Chip Collins, every Friday we met at 4 o'clock for 2 hours, and we go over one chapter of Think and Grow Rich until we took ownership of it. Because there's 4 levels to a book. There's the book, the words in the book, the meaning of the book, but then the understanding of the book, which is metaphysical. And Bucky always said the top of physics, which he was a doctor of physics, is metaphysics, right? And metaphysics is what is your understanding and utility of that. And that's why Elon Musk, who says, look, I was the smartest guy in physics, the smartest guy in economics back at Wharton. But the point is, as a physicist, you can't break physical laws, but you can transmute human law. That's the point. And that's what Andy did. That's what Carnegie did. That's what Andrew Carnegie did. That's what Napoleon Hill learned from Andrew Carnegie and 500 superstars of his time. And that's what we've learned, because I would say that we're friends with more than that because we got more travel, more communication, and we're living longer than Dr. Hill did.
What if I'm an atheist?
Ooh, good.
How do I?
You're asking the right woman.
Yeah, I know. No. This is great. I want to touch on this. I'm an atheist, and this is I would consider myself an atheist for many years.
Really?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, my mom was heavily religious, and we went to church. We did all the things, like, read the Bible, went to Sunday school, loved the Left Behind series, read the entire series. Fantastic series.
So good.
Great storytelling. Revelation scares the crap out of me. It's like a movie, right? And so you're like, whoa, this was cool. The thing that pulled me away and shut me down was my grandparents were heavily Pentecostal, and they spoke in tongues, and their eyes rolled back, and they did the snake handling thing, and they flopped on the ground, and they did like all the wacky stuff that scares me.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching the monetization of religion, and how humans just do a great job of, commoditizing everything. Right. And you're just like, how is this right and this wrong? How is this, how come these people say this thing, but realistically they're doing this over here? Right. You're a preacher, but you have a private jet and you're balling out because you're telling people the only way to get to heaven is if you tithe. Yeah. And none of it made sense to me. And then when I was about 10, my grandpa, who was a little German recovering alcoholic, very, very poor. We grew up in trailer parks and stuff. A lot of my mom's side of the family was from the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Very poor.
Wow.
Kind of inbred poor, just like my 3 uncles were like misfits, addicted to drugs, went to Vietnam, came back all addicted to heroin. Yeah. One died in prison, went to prison for being a pedophile. Another one was laundering money for the Russian mafia in Atlanta. He owned a bar, and somehow they infiltrated him, and they were like, I guess there was these little gambling machines that were on the bar tops, and they can do these like gambling, whatever, and they were laundering money through that, and then they got in trouble, and he became an informant. Like all this stuff was happening. Like, it was a mess. And then my other uncle is a professional con artist. He finds sweet old ladies to live off of, and finds government grants that he can weasel his way in, and never actually does anything. He's just a total con artist. But I'm experiencing this moment where my grandpa was watching me, and I'm probably 10, something like that, and he cornered me. and he started speaking in tongues. And I was really, really scared. And I remember the fear. I wanted out of that corner so bad. And he was speaking in tongues. He did it for like 10, 12, 15 minutes. It felt like an eternity.
Wow.
And by the time he was done, he came out of whatever this trance-like state was. I'm crying, and he's grabbing my shoulders, pushing me back and forth. And he said, Cody, someday you're going to lead a big flock. You're going to be a pastor. You've been ordained. You did it. And I'm looking at him like, I will do anything,
Not if that's what that looks like.
to not be in this place with you right now. Like I could not, I was so scared. And I said, nope, I'm done.
Yeah. Understandably.
Fast forward. I am, for the last 2 years, kind of getting back in. I've been doing a lot of prayer, reading the Bible, going to church, building that muscle, like really working hard on the spiritual side of my life. And it's been great. It's been great to form that relationship with God. My intimacy circles were all jacked up. And that's a whole nother podcast of how you have to hit rock bottom sometimes to like really wake up and think, reorganize your life. But the reason I'm asking is you guys keep going back to this, like kind of like ask and get plugged into your creator, get plugged into God, tap into the source. What if I don't believe?
Well, so here's the thing, just going back to everything you've said, human beings will always let us down. We live in this world of dark and light, black and white. There are sinners. There are, we mess up all the time. There will always be human beings inside of any institution, whether it's a church or a business, who will exploit opportunities, take advantage of people, right? Do a lot of bad, nasty things. So I think it's so important not to equate organized religion, churches, with that personal spiritual relationship with God. They're two very different things. Because your relationship with God, with the creator of the universe, is just you and God. It really has nothing to do with anybody else. And then, exploring the Bible is a really good way, because that is the history of the people from our past who explored and recorded their relationship with God and the things that were revealed to them. And it can be pretty magical, actually. But for me, there's so much more evidence to believe in God than to not believe in God. I mean, when you look at just the complexity of this, not just the whole universe, but our world. I mean, you look at the geometry of a plant or the structure of a peach, and you look at the way that geometry repeats itself, and you look at the beauty and the magnificence. So, you look at the beauty of flowers, just like all the varieties of flowers, and you go, and the smell and how much delight and joy that brings us, like as human beings, right? Or to eat fresh fruit. And you say, well, I go, well, that's the beautiful creation. God made that for us. And you go, no. You might argue, well, no, birds like the flowers. They go to the flowers. But do you know the way birds see flowers? They don't see the colors. They don't see the colors of flowers. They see flowers in kind of a monochrome picture. So why do we, who the Bible says we're created in our creator's image, right? That means we must be, if that's true, we are creative beings, right? And so if you look at the complexity and the beauty of this universe that was created, and this world was given to us, right? To human beings. Like it was said that we have dominion over this world. We do, right? We do. I mean, we can control the animals, control the world. All of this beauty and complexity and elegance, and almost the gifts, like why are strawberries so sweet and mangoes taste so good? Is that just a random thing where a bunch of dirt got thrown together, and some forces of the universe and just created this beautiful artistry? To me, there's no way you can ever explain that, right? Because when you look at creation, especially a human being, the complexity, the elegance, and the beauty. And I was listening to this microbiologist one day, and he said he spent like 6 years in a motorhome by himself in the woods, because he was going to get to the bottom of this whole, like, is there a creator? What is the first cause, right? Just looking at our biomolecular functions, right? And he said, basically, what I arrived at is there's something, because there are like thousands of these things that are going on in your body you're not even aware of, these enzymatic functions and metabolic functions, and it's creating this homeostasis in your body. How is that happening? What is holding that together? What is holding this beautiful, elegant life together, right? And he was going to get to the bottom of it. And he said, the only thing I could arrive at, because you keep looking like this triggers this and this triggers this. But at the end of that trail, he said, the only thing I could find is it's almost like there's this really intelligent, loving force that is holding life together. And for me, it's just so easy because I can't, if you look at the world and you study the world and you look at the beauty of the world and some of those things that we read in the Bible, they just prove out to be true. You know, we're created in the Creator's image. There's no other animal that has an imagination but us, human beings. We can think of something, whether it's a piece of art, an invention, a business plan, a way to pull things together, a strategy. And from just this vision, this in the stage of our imagination, we can bring that to life, something that didn't exist before. To me, that's just validation that says, yeah, we are created in our Creator's image, aren't we? So what are we doing with it? You know, because along with that huge gift, there's also responsibility, right? Because if that's true, I'm not the only one who's created in the Creator's image. Every single person you meet is. And so what do you do about that?
The answer to ask anyway?
Ask anyway. Ask, because there's no way you created yourself. Ask. You don't have to be sure. And what most people don't like when they stop believing or don't believe is that they just don't have a clear vision, or they say, you know, that punishing God in the sky. So if you just said, look, you know, Creator of the universe, whoever you are, whatever being, whatever shape you are, if you're there, you know, I have a question. Just start asking, right? Just say,
do it anyway.
Do it anyway. Ask.
Build the muscle.
Build the muscle. Ask. What do you have to lose?
Yeah,
but
makes sense.
Right?
Yeah. Can I add?
Yeah.
So what happens with atheism, and that's what's taught at the biggest schools, Harvard and Yale and Oxford and Cambridge, is and the guy who fights them, and you can see him on YouTube. We love him. His name is Dr. John Lennox. He's argued and debated every one of these guys. He said, every one of you guys is saying nothing times nothing equals something. That's not even possible. Nothing times 0 times 0 equals 0. You got to have something to create something. And God is something, gave us something. We can create something magnificent. The point, let me do it as elemental as I can. I just came up with this. You can't have a garden without a gardener. You can't have an oak tree without an acorn. You can't have a universe without what she said, the causeless cause. Now, the causeless cause is an a priori intelligence. That means an intelligence before reason. And his intelligence before reason, based on our science, which is also, you know, godlike, is 15 billion years old. And our little planet is about 5 billion years old. And yeah, we need to understand it, but there are 3 great watchmen in the world. This is one of the 3 great watches. This is a Ulysses Nard, exceedingly expensive. It didn't fall out of the sky. And what she's saying about the complexity of the human body didn't fall out of nowhere. Photosynthesis doesn't fall out of nowhere. Plants always know you plant an acorn, it sucks up all the nutrient it needs, turns into an oak tree. Or let me do better. One last story is that one of the little kids, we have a 12-year-old who's going to replant 1 trillion trees and balance the ecology. That's all we need to get the hydrological cycle, the ecology cycle, everything working. And he's planting from mulberry to apple because he said, Mark, tell me the myth so I understand it. So I said, it's not a myth. It's a guy named John Chapman, but we call him Johnny Appleseed, and you've seen the cartoons with your kids and all that. But here's a guy who said, look, everyone's going to go west. I'm going to plant the trees so they have something to eat. One apple, Bob Schuller taught me, Dr. Schuller told me, anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but nobody can count the apples in the seed. One apple becomes an apple tree that has 1 million apples during a 100-year life. That's the average. He planted 15,000. But every one of those apples, we can reforest the planet, which is why we had the Dust Bowl in the Midwest, because they cut down all the trees. Well, hell, you're going to have a Dust Bowl if you're stupid. It has what we call unexpected consequences. Right now, we got a lot of imbeciles in politics that are giving unexpected consequences. And I know that our friend Robert Kiyosaki was in there flaming about it. And I know we happen to agree with most everything he says.
Yeah.
How do you feel about how things are going right now? Let's shift over to, some money talk.
So the only solution, as far as I'm concerned, is I did a whole tape on Elon Musk, because here's a guy who owns 7, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, multi-billion-dollar companies, but the ones that no one thinks about is 40,000 Starlink satellites in the air. What does that mean? That means he can communicate. Now, what did he do? He just bought back, when he created PayPal with Peter Thiel, he created X.com credit card. He's going to charge you 1% on a credit card, but you're going to pay $8 a month. That's a subscription. And that's how, Amazon takes in $200 billion every January 1st when we all pay our Amazon thing, right? So we're Prime. And there are people out there not Prime. You're going to have to look up how this works. But the point is, he's going to give a new credit card. That's going to usurp and outthink the Federal Reserve, because Powell and Yellen are not very bright, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I know I'm being critical and judging, not being outjudged, but the point is, you've got to empirically look at the evidence. We have the skyrocketing inflation, all created because we're not pumping oil. We got 1,000 years of oil in America, and we own an alternative company. We got pop-up windmills and pulsating waves. We got cool machines in our company, naturalpowerconcepts.com, but they're being prevented now because of idiots in politics who say, no, we don't need that. We talk green, but that's rhetoric. That's not reality. And I'm talking about the biggest energy company in America, which we wasted 4 years talking to, because these guys all talk a good scene, but they're lying. And I'm saying, I only want to deal with people that talk the truth. You promise me something, I promise you something, I deliver what I promise. That's it. Real simple. That's do unto others, right? That's not what is happening in politics. They say this, but they're doing this.
Right. And I think more than ever, we need to start asking ourselves as individuals. We have to understand government is broken. It's broken. It's just a bunch of corrupt bureaucrats. There's corruption everywhere. They're not looking out for the good of the people. Sadly, that's just the reality. So these problems are only going to be solved by us. So we need to be asking, what are the solutions that we can come up with together? And I think that's why Elon Musk is so successful, and we're all like, he's our superhero right now, because he is just going forward with really excellent ideas. And we have to bypass these bad ideas that are being foisted upon us. Stopping oil production while we're buying it from our enemies is just the silliest thing in the world. So it just shows you there are payoffs and other interests. It makes no sense, right? It makes no sense whatsoever. We're not ready to go to a green economy. We have no infrastructure. I mean, it's absurd. So we just raised our prices, and that made everything else go up. So obviously, the people in power right now are not connected to the needs of the people. So we need to connect to each other and ask ourselves constantly, like, how do we create our own economies? How do we, trade? How do we just basically create an entire economy? And I really think that's what's going to happen outside of this old system that's just been so corrupted.
So let me just add to what she said. So I did a YouTube video on, we need 10 Elon Musks.
Yeah, we do.
And I got 28 letters the next day from people saying, I'm him. Now, I'd said during the thing that the cover story from Steve Forbes, who I like a lot, Steve says, look, there's going to be $100 billion AI companies, artificial intelligence. We're part of 3. So, and I'm sure there's out there. So when I got those 20 letters, I said, God, there's great help, because we owe $30.5 trillion, not counting on funded debts. We're close friends with Dr. Harry Dent. We travel around the world with Harry, and Harry says, look, there's $280 trillion worth of unfunded debt. We need entrepreneurship. That's why I love coming on this show with you. I hope we get invited back. I hope it's been useful to the people listening. The point is, we need more entrepreneurs, because it's small business, it's all business, and we need small government and big entrepreneurs, not big business and no entrepreneurs.
Couldn't agree more. That's why we started the show. And This is why I love real estate. It's something that I think every single person, you can't control prices. You can't control what the politicians are doing. You can't control what's happening with gas or the economy, but you can handle your own little economy.
Yes,
you can handle your own skills and capabilities. Yep. You can start that business. You can hire people that are in your community. You can build your little network and build your financial wall around you and your family, so you can protect yourself from the insanity that's going on, because it is going to get worse. You touched on something I want to ask, because AI is going to disrupt the publishing industry. It's going to disrupt people writing books in one day, cover to cover with graphics. where do you see AI interrupting what you guys are doing at the Mark Victor Hansen? Is it Mark Victor Hansen Publishing?
Mark Victor Hansen
Library.
Library.com, because I'm Library 3.0. Library 1.0 is Alexandria, when he, at 28 years old, took all the wisdom of the world and put it in Alexandria, Egypt. Library 2.0 is the guy we were talking about, Andrew Carnegie. He created 2,851 libraries, free for everybody, and only 1% of us have a library card, which he should have charged, then it would have seen more value. So we're Library 3.0 because we're literally going to communicate, educate, and share wisdom with the whole world and have our own platform and all that. The AI is wonderful and terrible. Everyone says, well, even Elon Musk says it's dangerous. It's dangerous unless you put value in it, you put morality in it, you put ethics in it. That's what he's saying. It's like fire. It warms up this beautiful building we're in, but it'll burn it down. And it's not the fire. It's who's doing what. And you got fire extinguishers and all that. So the point is that AI is going to have some great stuff, and we're part of some stuff that I can talk about if you want. But it is so exciting because AI cannot really write the book. Now, it can write a book, but it can't be your book, and it's not going to be imaginative. And remember, we're specializing in fiction because a fiction book sells 10,000 to 1 over nonfiction. The world's best-selling fiction book's not one of mine. It's The Alchemist, right, by a guy down in Brazil. He sold 150 million copies, but the people that are making our movie
What's his name? Paulo Coelho.
Paulo Coelho.
Yeah, I can't even ever say his name.
Yeah, but he's just got a movie out, and I'm predicting he will sell 500 million of The Alchemist, which everyone should read. I've read it 3 times. It's that critical of the book. Yeah, and you've read it. I mean, almost nobody that's educated hasn't read it. It's like everyone's read a Chicken Soup book. So that's why I've had 1 billion readers at least, because of the pass-along value. So it's exciting. AI is wonderful and terrible at the same time, but you can say fire is the first invention for mankind, in case you didn't know it. And it was wonderful. It heated them up, but it also burned the forest when they didn't know how to control it.
So you think there is a place for AI in the publishing space?
Absolutely.
That's a healthy place.
Right. It's a safe place if people have values, ethics, and morality. Now, publishers that don't have that are going to screw up the whole marketplace for themselves, not for me.
Yeah. Well, it's been a game changer for, at least in my little world, just like coming up with ideas, content creation, headlines, marketing concepts, for a content creation tool, at least in its current form.
Yeah.
For the masses, it makes it so every single person needs to start playing around with it and learn how to become a professional prompter, because that's really what it is. We have to learn how to ask it.
That's right. You do.
You got to learn how to ask it.
It's all about the question, isn't it?
Which question, and if you give it the right inputs, it can create decent outputs. What I found, at least in its current world, is gets you about 80% there. You still have to take it the other 20%. You have to modify it and all that other stuff. These are the types of businesses I want to invest in or think about are essential services. I'm looking kind of like from the eyes of like a private equity fund. Like if I was to start and scale a business right now in my life, what type of business would I do? It'd be non-disruptable AI businesses. Yeah. It'd be things that only people can do. And I think this is where a lot of money, Wall Street money, is going to go to these non-essential essential services that you can't destroy with AI, right?
Exactly.
Like you can't automate with AI.
That's right.
10, 15 years from now, a plumber's still a plumber.
That's right.
You need somebody to come take care of your toilet. They're going to show up at your house.
AI's not going to
do it. And so it's like, those are the types of businesses. If I'm going to put 5-10 years of my life into building and scaling something, young guys, if you're out there, think of those types of businesses.
Trades.
And because they're very sellable, and we have a common friend. His name is Tommy Mello. You published his book
called Elevate.
Elevate, right?
And it's right now rocking at #1. And he's at the beginning. He's got I think he told me 150 seminars booked in the next 2 years. Yeah. He can't help but rock this to the top.
Yeah. What's cool about Tommy, he started a company called A1 Garage Services. And, I bought my garage doors from him. You bought your garage doors from him. But that company really scaled here in the Valley, and it's scaling even beyond that.
He's in 35 states, going to 50 in Canada. So it'll be $1 billion company.
Yeah. He's on the rocket ship right now. And then he came to you and said, hey, I got a vision for a book. Let's go. And that's what your publishing company does. You take authors and experts and turn them into authors. through helping them actually structure the whole thing, because we don't know what the hell we're doing when it comes to publishing and launching a
Right.
book.
Most people can't write a book.
No.
I mean, it's really hard. Most people who are really successful honestly don't know how to write. And they don't
We don't
want
have time
to.
for
They
that.
don't want to. They get frustrated. They try to sit down and write a book. So we just take all your best ideas and listen to you and put them in a book.
Yeah, you have the machine to actually.
Right.
Yeah, we have the best writers. I mean,
the
it's
best writers
incredible.
in the world. And,
yeah.
and what we're saying is,
Beautiful,
look, it
caring
is the
writers.
best business card you'll ever have. If you give me a business card, I chuck it. If you give me a book and sign it to me, like we're going to sign that book to you before we leave, you're not going to chuck it, and it's going to be to you, Cody, and family. So all
Makes an
future
impact.
progeny, all future generations are going to get it. Because I don't throw away Mark Twain books or Clive Cussler books or anybody else's books that I got signed.
Look, I haven't really seen a bigger needle mover than becoming a best-selling author.
Nothing.
It is
true.
one of the best
true.
things in the business world, at least, is one
Totally.
of the best things. And it opens doors. It sets you up for success. It's like you said, it is kind of a brag point. It's a door opener. It's a business card. It's all the things. And I told you we're going to do something together, because I told you I own selfmademillionaire.com.
Such a great.
And I bought it for
Great
this
URL.
purpose, because I believe that we can create a self-made millionaire series
Yes.
of books. I think that there's a marketplace for that. And I knew it wasn't going to be around me. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted it to be a fictional book, but that really leaned in on the financial literacy component in different niches. And I can see the grand vision of it scaling to a bunch of different niches. So we got some business.
We're
Right,
in
and
it.
we integrate both, because like in the Ask book, it's not just stories. There's a lot of how-to. There's a lot of tools, like
Yeah.
really practical tools, but you have to back it up with the story so you can really, really feel what you need to do.
If I have an idea for a book and I came to you, do I have to be the world's leading expert in this niche?
No, but you got to be willing to pay. If we're going to ghostwrite it with you, it's $29,900. If you've got it done and we got to make it irresistibly compelling writing, and it's done, we fix it up, cover it, do everything, publish it, take it to number one. But that's $18,000. But most people need us to, like she said, take your ideas, your stories, your principles, your message, and make them wonderful. Because the middle word of what you just said, authority, is author. And there's nothing more important than you authoring some part of your life to go. And let's talk about why it's important. When you transition out of life, first of all, it'll say your name, how old you are, and the next thing it says your book. It doesn't say your wife. It doesn't say you made millions. It doesn't say anything. So it's going to say your self-made millionaire book or book series now.
All right.
author of.
No, I didn't make it up. That's if
Author
they're
of.
writing an obit
Yeah.
on me, they're going to have a lot of books. But
Yeah, that's going to be a long obituary.
Yeah,
There's
a long
a lot of
obituary.
books underneath it. Hey, I do like your watch, by the way.
Thank you.
What does something like that cost me?
Ulysses Narrative.
Nowadays.
What did you
This
pay
is-
back then?
that's
It's
fancy.
probably more
by the
now.
way, look at the back and see how many awards it's got. There's no watch that has more awards.
What is
than
going
What
on?
did you
got
pay
a
for that?
whole-
I forget.
and you
Was
got-
it at
We went-
73,000 or something?
Jeez Louise, it's kind of harder in
Yeah.
gold medals.
Yeah.
18 gold medals. What does that say? 10?
Yeah.
18?
Yeah, whatever it says, right.
London. So these are the awards of the watch manufacturer?
Yeah.
Or is these your
Ulysses,
awards?
the three best watches in the world are everyone's going to say Rolex, but they're not even in the top 10. They manufacture
I'm a
300.
little watch guy myself there.
I know, I can see that.
What do you have going on
I got
there?
a little Richard Millet.
Woo.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Us white guys say Richard Mill.
Yeah.
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 By the way, he's one of the three best. The
Richard
other one
Mille.
is Patek Philippe.
Yeah.
And if you go to Switzerland, you got to go to the Patek building. It's got the best videos. You can't even believe how many beautiful watches they are. I mean, they are aesthetic wonders. I'm a watch addict. I own 50 watches. So when we do really well, I buy
Where do you
watches.
put your money? Like when you think about investing and multiplying your money and investing your money, obviously you guys have done some real estate
Right.
stuff. You own some land. You were telling me about some land that you own in different places. How do you think about multiplying money, investing money, that kind of thing?
Right. I think you need to be a little bit diversified. Real estate's just the best. I mean, because you have the land, you own it. We love real estate, have loved it, have always made money, done so well on real estate. We've never lost money in real estate.
Let me go back one
it's-
phase. You got to invest in yourself first. You got to take your training,
Well,
our
true.
training, somebody's training.
Yeah.
And because you got to know something. You can't, if you go out and do real estate, you're going to lose your butt. Because somebody
That's a good point. You do have to invest in yourself. All of us have invested in ourselves.
Yeah,
through
I mean, what did she
seminars,
do? She came to my
webinars,
seminar, right? I mean,
books,
and
yeah.
we've attended
Yeah.
seminars. I've been to more probably than anyone else, given and taken. I'm a seminar addict, and even here in town, we get the best seminars come out. Whether it's Jordan Peterson or Dennis Prager or Kiyosaki, and I've done a lot, and Ken McElroy. I mean, we do a lot of stuff with all the superstars, and we love all of them are friends.
Yeah. And we do land partnerships. We do, some land on our own. And you really need gold and silver. And some people go, oh, gold and silver, that doesn't make any sense. You're never going to make any money. I get it. You don't buy gold and silver to make money. You buy gold and silver to hedge your bet against this horrible currency that's getting diluted every minute because it has real value.
The fake money that's out there. You get real money.
Fiat money.
Yeah.
It's sort of the just in case. You're not buying it because it's going to go up. And maybe it will if this gets so bad. It probably will.
But Kiyosaki said it right on your show when I watched the show before I got here. Yeah. Everyone's got $20. Buy some junk, what's called junk silver. Now, if you buy real numismatic, that means the date and the value. But you make sure it's real silver, no copper inside, because that's why Rome felt. They faked the currency. And that's what we're doing in America. When they took back all the copper pennies, that wasn't a mistake. We're out of copper. Now, wait a second. You and I live in a copper state, and the biggest copper company in the world is right here. We've been to headquarters, and right there.
We got cactuses, copper. What else? Cattle,
cotton,
cotton,
climate, and crystal.
And crystal.
That's
crystal.
It.
Hey, we got crystal with
the
6 C's here in Arizona.
Did you watch my video on that?
No, he just knows the 5 C's.
People have said we have
5 C's.
All these 5 C's, and lots of copper here.
We do.
Yeah, and by the way, we got plenty of copper, and copper's needed in every car. Copper's needed in every electrical battery. So we're a rich state and going to get richer. But let me just take you there.
Not if all the Californians keep coming.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
But everybody,
as long as you guys are conservative,
everybody in the country is saying we're out of resource. We don't have enough rare earths. We're part of a little company. We're advisors to it called Remining Corporation. Guys spent $300 million. Every one of us create 5 pounds of garbage each and every day. And all of our garbage dumps, 10,000 of them are full, and they didn't mean to make a mistake. Wayne Huizinga did 20 mil poly, and that seemed like a good idea, but he didn't know we'd have acids that would kill the water and all that, which is happening in Pennsylvania, happened in Michigan. And so what this guy's doing is we can take all that garbage and turn it into resources. Glass to glass, metal to metal, 60% of garbage is water. We can turn all of it back into a resource. We're rich, except guess what? Our government, who says they're interested in really recycling, aren't doing it. We don't need to go anywhere. This is the richest country, but it's got to stay free. It's got to stay free enterprise, because my daddy taught me, like yours did you, free enterprise means more enterprising you are, the freer you are. And I want to increase freedom, not decrease freedom. And all these people are saying, well, I'm going to get a free lunch. The government's paying for me because they've sent me these stupid checks. That's dangerous. That means they are putting you in shackles if you ain't paying attention. You're about to become a prisoner. And if you don't believe that, we've been to China 80 times. I promise you there's 30 million people making Nike shoes there right now that are slaves. And if they don't work, they take out their body parts, they take out their blood, and they give it to somebody else. This is not okay to me. We ended slavery, at least our hero Abe Lincoln, and I'm from the land of Lincoln, Illinois, tried to do that for the world and said, hey, look, this is a better model. Don't be a tyrannist. There's more than enough for everyone. Even Mahatma Gandhi, when he wrote the foreword to Think and Grow Rich, he said there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for anyone's greed. And there's
I don't even know a better way to end that rant you just went on. That was perfect.
Yeah, that was good.
One last rant. We're friends with Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who's taken Bangladesh, a poor country, and made it into one of the richest. And what he says is poverty belongs one place, a museum. And you and I are in charge as training of putting it in a museum. I mean, this is more important than any other kind of museum, but we need it for 8 billion people and going to 12 billion. We can handle 12 billion easily. We're having a population collapse, not a population explosion right now.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day. Japan is really hurting right now. They're really worried that whole entire country is going to collapse.
There's nobody to work because old people are old and they didn't have babies.
It's the same problems. Yeah, the lack of having children and too much socialized government intervention, and not enough young people to sustain that. And that's where we're all headed right now. All of these free government handouts, like Mark said, are not free. We are all being enslaved, and that does not end well because you do end up
it drives me crazy when I see people with the entitlement and the laziness. Nuts. We're at peak entitlement, peak laziness, peak not thinking.
Exactly.
They're
just send me my checks and
and
it's
they
really
blow it on the
pathetic.
dumbest shit, and you're just like,
Right.
what are you guys doing?
Right.
Yeah,
Wake
exactly.
up.
And I'm not going to act like I didn't get money from the government. They gave me money. I went and bought real estate with it.
Right.
Because that's what I do with my money.
Right, exactly,
And
right.
this point of the show is like, look, we have to protect ourselves. The insanity is not going to stop.
No.
You look at what's happening. I mean, the dude's asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
It's really pathetic. It's such a clown show.
Yeah.
And it's very scary.
I think it's even worse than asleep at the wheel, though, Cody. I think it's very deliberate. I don't think
It's manipulative.
they're not focused. They're not focused on the success of the United States of America. It's a very selfish, globalist, elitist outlook. However they can get the most for themselves to maintain their power and control and money, it's just total greed. They don't really care about this anymore. They just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're owned by everybody.
At being an entrepreneur, owning companies, scaling
Have to do
businesses,
your own thing.
I would not hire
Any of those guys.
the president or the vice president
Never.
for a single business that I
Not for a
own
day.
for any position. And that's what when I'm going to vote, I'm always asking myself, would I hire this person to run my company, let alone my country?
Yeah.
Right. So
The
let's talk.
answer is absolutely
way.
not.
It's
I
frightening.
I wouldn't feel confident putting them in customer support.
So
Exactly.
let's-
Isn't that sad that
That's what's
we're at this
scary.
point right now?
But we were so pissed.
yeah.
People were so mad at the concept of Donald Trump. Not what he was doing,
No.
not the politics, not
Right.
the actual
Just-
actions
just
that he was doing.
His mean tweets.
It was
you know,
the tweets.
Whatever.
It was the feeling they got.
right. The emotions.
And I
we're
would get in these
just-
long debates with my dad, and I love my dad, but over time he's become more and more liberal. And hey, everybody's got their own right to their own opinion.
Yep.
But we'd get in these huge philosophical debates. Me and the video guys, we would get in these big philosophical debates, and we'd go back and forth and all this stuff. And I just kept simplifying and just saying, would I hire these people
Yeah.
to run anything I have going on?
Mm-hmm.
The answer was always no.
It's
No
like having a
chance.
3-year-old fly your plane. You don't want to do that.
Never.
So let's talk to one last thing. If you take a circle, Jordan Peterson says, hey, look, here's a circle. 5% of it is free. The rest is all run by tyrannists and despots. And you don't want that.
If
They
the
want to
circle is the
close the
world.
loop.
Yeah.
And he started the ARC. You can watch it on YouTube, Dr. Jordan Peterson, the ARC. And what he's doing is he's putting together the opposite of Davos, with those of us leaders that can lead with vision and entrepreneurship and understanding the only model that works is freedom. My father came out of a socialist country because socialism doesn't work. When Hitler's coming in, Dad came to America and had nothing but problems, but at the front end because he couldn't speak English, he spoke Danish. So the point is, we've got to expand freedom, not let it contract. With socialism, it's tested, tried, and terrible.
Right. And the one other thing I want to mention is, to my Democrat friends, this isn't even about Democrat versus Republican. It's not about liberal versus conservative anymore. And that's what scares me, that most people are not tapping into. A lot of Democrats are catching on to this. This group of people that have taken over the Democrat Party are not liberals. They're not liberals. Liberal, what does liberal stand for? It stands for really caring about the little guy, making sure they have great work opportunities, industrial opportunities. I mean, no overregulation. I mean, all of these things that mattered before don't matter. Freedom of speech. So liberal universities in the beginning were like, you can say anything. You can share your views openly. All of the Democrat Party and all of the liberal ideas have been taken over by very Marxist, socialist, controlled thinking, controlled agendas. And it is no longer, do not kid yourself if you think you're in the old Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy. That is not this party. They don't care about the little guy. It's been totally taken over by corporate elitists who look at all the little guys as cattle to just be moved around for their convenience. Look at what's happening. Democrat supermajorities in all of these states, they're just falling apart. There are easy solutions to helping the homeless, to helping, these issues. Just there are tent cities now. They're giving drugs and needles. They don't care that these people are dying. In fact, they have an agenda with, their cohorts at Davos to get rid of these useless people in the world who are just so stupid that they take drugs, right? There's not a level of caring, and there is no I mean, I'm not telling you how to feel about God, but most of these people do not have any belief in God.
They strip that out.
They strip that out.
Very
so they don't
slowly,
care.
they've stripped it out from
so
everything.
They don't care about their fellow man. And we should be caring about each other. That is gone. If you think that's what the Democrat Party is about, you're blind. You're not awake. It's gone. John F. Kennedy would be horrified.
Well, they're destroying the nuclear family.
They are.
Right.
You know, and that's like the foundational core piece of making this whole entire civilization work. It's like,
exactly.
All right, here we go. Like, what do we do next? Like,
right.
Artificial create fake babies and
then let us make you so miserable and depressed, and then just let us put this little chip in your head and we'll make you happy all the time.
Oh man,
right?
It's like the movies.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I feel like well, what's the solution? How do we get out of this? We got to take control. We got to you develop probably the most useful skill in the world, which is sales
and writing.
Why
transfer of information, knowledge and information.
Transfer knowledge.
Yep.
Okay, because if I know how to sell and I believe in what I'm selling, you can create income for yourself. Then you can invest that income. You can build that financial wall around you and your family. You can start companies, scale companies, hire people, and really just, set a better standard for your community, for your family, and for the people that are around you. I love it.
So our model, and we'll finish with that model about our book company, and that is, she wrote the line, but we want to do impact books to bring your story to life, because everyone has a story and it's got to be impact. And so far we got 118 books we're working on right now. We had 18 number one last year, and like we just talked with Mellows, every one of them is different. And every one of them, back to what she said, we can house on housed humanity, feed on fed humanity. We can do all these things. I got 10 of them I can name. But the point is, we're in the most exciting time, but that's not what's getting the media. The media is hammering you on stupidness.
Yeah.
Right? I can go through what the stupidness is, but we've got to end this.
When you say we're at the most exciting times, you mean in capabilities?
Potential.
And people that want to do stuff.
Yeah. And in addition to that sales skill you were talking about, the most important skill, honestly, for all of us to learn is the ability to ask, the art and science of asking. We need to study it because it changes everything. And we have a lot of stories. I wish we had more time to. I mean, we've already.
You guys were great. We'll have to come bring you back on again. To keep talking about some of this stuff.
Some of these specific stories.
Mark, you're like you're like this ball of knowledge that I just want to be around. I want to hear all your war stories. I want to know, maybe real quick. We'll end on two things, because I do want to talk about making your money matter and kind of end on a high note.
Sure.
Something about making humanity better, not destroying it. You're talking to a new entrepreneur. We want to give them some advice, right?
You got to make all the money you can, save all the money you can, invest all the money you can, so you can give all the money you can. That's simple.
All right. Well, you nailed that.
No, I've been thinking about this for 50 years, so I got a few days on you, and it's not like it's to me, it's eclectic wisdom that when you hear it, you go, yeah, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to buy into it. That's the point. Yeah. And I wrote a whole book
people
called...
People get distracted, though. They listen to all these people's opinions. They get distracted. They get negative. They get cynical. They try something. It doesn't work. Then next thing you know, they're getting negative Nancy, And,
right.
Especially today with social media, I blame social for a lot of the world's challenges that we have right now, because it's
frustrating.
I don't know if we were ready for everybody's opinion. I don't think we can handle it. I can barely handle my friends' opinions, let alone like random. I have over 1 million
strangers.
followers, and it's just like a bombardment of like.
Always. I
have people announcing like I'm an airport or something, like, hey, I'm unfollowing you. It's like, oh, thanks for announcing that. You didn't announce that you followed me. It's like wild to me. You've been following me for years, but I said one thing that you don't agree with, or you got pissed at, or it didn't jive with your view of the world. And then you wanted to write me this big, long, letter on how you're unfollowing.
Oh my gosh, it's
we
so
know that
petty.
problem.
Yeah, thanks for the announcement.
When you're big, you've got a target, and they shoot at you.
I kill them with kindness. I always write back, and I just put, hey, I hope you come back, man.
Yeah,
I hope you come back. I hope you have some more unconditional love in your heart to see from different points of view. And I just mess with them a little bit. And,
but you just have to forgive them and move on. I mean, because obviously they're having their own little struggle. And it's just so funny that they make a big announcement they're unfollowing you. Like, I'm going to stab you in the heart.
Well, with that level of ability to say your opinion, we're seeing the results of it. With great power comes great responsibility in a way, right? And we're not being responsible on social media.
Right, exactly.
With how we treat each other and all that.
Right.
Last question you said is?
I wanted to find out how you guys, what's your vision for your legacy? How are you guys going to make your money matter? You guys have obviously been very successful, made a big impact already. It's not like you got to do much more, but if you think about, making your money matter, is it philanthropy? Is it in your book series?
It's kind of a combination of things, like impacting the world through books and these ideas. Like some of these books that we're putting out right now are just so important for people to have in their hands. So that's one of the ways we plan to influence the world and leave a lasting mark, but also just solutions that foster independence. That's what we need right now. We're getting pushed toward this centralized control of this one person, this handful of 10 people controlling all of us. So, we're actually looking at putting together like a ranch where we have, our own water, our own growing, and goats, chickens, things like that, so that no matter what happens, we're always safe, we're always abundant. And I think people need to look to themselves more and stop thinking. We've been led down this path that the government is there to solve all of our problems. It's such a lie, and that's never what America was set up for. It's a country of independence. We should be able to support ourselves 100% and never rely on the government.
And that's why it's a declaration of independence by my favorite president. I'll stop with this line, but Thomas Jefferson said, and we love it, if my candle's lit and yours isn't, light yours and mine. Doesn't take anything from mine, makes the world fourfold brighter. And we need to make the world brighter because it's been dumbed down. We thank you for letting us be in your show today.
Mark, Crystal, thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with us. I do want to have you back. I think it would be a great, so many questions I want to ask. I want to know, how much money can I make from a book, right? Like, what are we talking? I want to know about that. I want to know,
we'll do all those.
More lessons that you've obviously been exposed speaking on stage. I wanted to get into sales, persuasion, influence strategies. I wanted to get into some like the nuts and bolts, like how do you get out there and promote something like a pro? The technical stuff. Right now, this was a great conversation to get to know you guys and just kind of expose some of the things, the cool stuff we're doing. And I hope we write some books together.
We will.
So I'd love to have you back. Thank you for sharing. For everybody, look, we had a great conversation here. If you got some value from it, the only thing I ask, since we don't advertise on this channel, is to just share it with a friend, pass this around. Just like Mark said, buy one book, or maybe it was Crystal, buy two, but one book for yourself, one book for somebody else. And go through it. Do the same thing with this podcast because it helps us grow our audience and make a bigger impact. That's all we have for you in this episode. Until next time, we're out of here. Take care. Comb your hair. Peace. Hey, thanks for being a subscriber of the Clever Investor Show. As a thank you gift, we wanted to give you something that we know is going to help you get started as a creative real estate investor. It's our Real Estate Success Kit, and it's completely free. Just go to www.reisuccesskit.com to customize your kit, but essentially it's a collection of 15 training tools designed to help you get results quickly as a creative real estate investor. From systems to lead generation to finding cash buyers to creative ways to close deals and get paid. Your free REI Success Kit is just a few clicks away. Once again, the website's www.reisuccesskit.com.